Gamarjibat. Hi. Welcome to our second season of our Liberland in Georgia podcast. My name is Sam. I'm the Liberland representative to the country of Georgia. And this time I invited George Paliani to join us at this episode. But all this couldn't happen without Franklin Club, which is a liberal think tank focused on the economic and political education. Thank you so much, guys, for making this happen. So first, I would love to just mention that I dedicate the second season of the podcast to the business perspective of Georgia. Why? Because Georgia is badly on rise and I don't want you to miss out. So this is also why I invited George today. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
I will leave the introduction on your story and or your past on yourself, but first I would love to mention why I decided to invite you myself, or what was my motivation. So I will go back a few weeks, or actually maybe months ago. I was contacted by your assistant because you were curious about Liberland. And, you know, of course, my assistant started investigating you. She sent me your profile and some of your introduction. Yes, I was investigating your person. And I was just reading it through, and I was like, when I went through your education and career path, I was like, okay, this is a smart guy who's interested in Liberland, and I want to get to know him. And I'm so happy that we got to know each other. So this is just a little teaser, because George is a very interesting person from multidisciplinary field. And tell me your story.
Well, thank you for such warm words. Yeah, likewise. It was a wonderful moment knowing you when you came into our office, and it still is.
Thank you.
Now I'm here, and you're the host, and thank you for having me once again. Well, I don't know what to start with. It can be a very long story, as one of my favorite jokes is when an interviewer asks you, like, we'll start from the beginning. And I always start with the beginning, like, okay, first I created the earth. Second, then you have people and animals and so on and so forth. Okay. Well, to cut a long story short, I come from business and, let's say, political background. My education was both. I graduated from university where we're studying international economic relations. And I also did my PhD in diplomatic academy. And well, I always combined this two things that actually were really exciting me, both administrating business, or doing my MBA, and of course, as we all know, everything is connected to politics, and this field also was a big interest for me, and especially diplomacy. That's why I was learning like 6 European languages, and I also even started a little career in MFA. But as deeper I got into politics, into international relations, into international economic relations, into starting, I don't know, from theory and putting into life, more I got invested into finding some kind of a, let's call it a recipe of success, both for me and nationwide, worldwide. And that's how I came into crypto, actually. Yes.
All right.
It's a very, very short story, but actually the last 6 years I've been into this sphere, and this this blockchain technology, IT, fintech, has always been so interesting and so exciting and amazing field to discover, and especially helping very smart guys who are doing startups, finding investors for them, building teams, then growing the product and services, and then scaling it. Well, it has been like a very, very big thing for me, both in my personal life and my business life.
Yeah, maybe I would love to go back to the point when you mentioned that, you know, your political and economical background made you into blockchain. What was the major impulse, or what was the, you know, was there like something particular that made you that curious about, you know, this more tech perspective?
Well, I would maybe underline here three main reasons. First of all, when I did my PhD and I was writing my thesis on contemporary Swedish politics, I found it really interesting because Sweden, Norway, I mean, Nordic countries were always like ahead of all other countries, especially if we're speaking about social aspects, economic aspects, almost any aspects, even startup aspects as well, these hubs that they have and many, many other things. That was the first step, the first time I was like thinking like, why? And then after finding this third way, so-called third way, when they actually combined this socialist, democratic and capitalistic approach together and found their third way, so-called. So this was the very interesting discover for me. Then the second thing, I was looking for, of course, some kind of a technology, because I also studied a lot of material on governance, international governance, management, political management, business management, and so on and so forth. And I was curious if there is some kind of a formula, a recipe, some kind of a way to use maybe some technologies and evade some risk factors, especially some human risk factors.
Yeah.
And this was like the second thing, which my mind was curious about. And finally, the third step, the third way for me was actually this blockchain technology, which was developed like more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
Of course, this cryptocurrencies, and of course the other abilities and other options and other ways how this technology can be used. And this is just one little tricky invention of Satoshi. Let's call him or they,
Yeah.
them, like this. And this Byzantium dilemma of generals, which was actually this protocol built on, and many, many other things made me actually think more. And this is actually how I got into this sphere, because I saw this like one of the keys to open, not the Pandora box, I hope, but to open the new way of managing, of doing business, of life, and so on and so forth. Just a quick good example. Many of you know how blockchain already helps them in governmental structures, how it already helps you to preserve information, to do it in the decentralized way. Especially, it was a very, very big thing after 2008, when we had this war, Georgia against Russia, and how it helped to at least to hold this information about the belongings, about the real estate, which was which was and is belongs to Georgian citizens. And then when this blockchain technology was implemented in our government, then you can, I don't know, bomb any kind of a data center, but when it's decentralized, you still have this information with you. So I think that this need, of course, it was maybe not a very good reason, but still, there is a need to preserve information or to not to forge it. Yes, which is also a very big thing, especially in reputation. Be it like other reasons. So I mainly just underline these three: how I got into this sphere and how I became, let's say, like a crypto enthusiast and some kind of a crypto anarchist as well.
It's like if you understand how politics, economics work, and then you get into crypto, you cannot, just be a communist. I think.
I'm not a communist. No.
But
not a good way to build big structures and especially to manage them. It brings you a lot of corruption.
Yeah.
History has already seen. We have already seen it in history many times, and we keep seeing it still, especially in such political regimes as in North Korea and in Cuba and some others.
Yeah.
So
we don't have to go even that far.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. There's a lot of wisdom and thinking about all these aspects. This is really interesting. I know that you spent most of your life away from Georgia, actually, and then you came back. And you have this, you travel a lot and you have this international perspective. How do you see Georgia yourself today or over the years?
It's a very difficult question, especially me being a Georgian. I'm 80% Georgian and 20% Ukrainian because of my grandmother. And it's always very, very complicated to speak about these things because they touch you in your heart. Because I was born here, now I returned here, and it's always a very, very well. Being a Georgian, it means that you're very emotional. Yes,
and romantic,
Yeah, well, it depends, but very emotional. So I would try to focus on less on emotions, but more on facts. And there are very, very interesting perspectives in Georgia. I mean, not only like business, but also political perspectives and even social perspectives. When we start with let's start with the economic ones, because we already see a very, very big uprise in, be it in real estate, when even in Euronews you can catch some phrases from the some interviews and some interesting analytical data when they say that the real estate will be rising up to 30% or even more because of the rising demand and so on and so forth. So this is, of course, not only stimulated by the war, but also stimulated by other factors. This means that investors, this means that not only expats or some other guys from different countries, but also Georgians are doing good business, have more profits and gains, and they want to buy more real estate, and the nation is growing, which is of course very, very good for such a small country and for such a small nation as we are. The second thing, in economic, if we're talking about economics, I have traveled a lot, as you have already said, and because of my business and because of being an international ambassador and advisor to several startups, several selected startups, I must stress, yes. I was really very glad seeing, like 3 months ago, on Web Summit, when a startup done by Georgians and picked up by Y Combinator also won a startup pitch at Web Summit. I even filmed them and did some interviews with them. It's like, it was a wow effect for me.
Yeah.
Then I came back and visited several very nice events, such as Touch Summit, and we also organized some events. And I saw there and got acquainted with several other startups, which were born here, managed mostly by local people. Young, very smart guys and ladies, and which were and are to scale internationally. And every second startup is looking into scaling overseas, or already is doing it, yes, and scaling it into the American market and international markets themselves. So this is also very, very big signal be it for investment or for economics, both. And the third part, if we're speaking about economics, is that I really admire the comfort and the things that are actually being done here. What do I mean? Georgia could already be seen as a startup country, to be honest, especially back like 20 years ago, when you had so many resources, of course, a lot of problems, but government has done a very, very big job. And now we see new universities, we see a lot of investors and investments already done, especially, of course, in tourism. But nevertheless, yes, we also see some other very, very great examples, as I've already said about Georgian startups which are gaining momentum. This all combined, of course, gives you a very, very big opportunity, be it for a young student who is looking for a job, or I don't know, or building a startup himself, or doing like whatever he or she wants to do. But also, it gives you a very, very nice thing. You can test your hypothesis, especially me being an ex-growth manager. You can test hypothesis here. Very nice, easy, smooth, and very, very cheap.
That makes sense.
Especially when you have here an international community, which is growing. Each month is growing. I mean, not only those guys who are fleeing from the war, from Eastern Europe, but also international-wise. Even here, when I came, I saw a lot of international students. And it's always been a very, very big thing for me because, well, I like to travel into India or to like MENA region countries. And when I see those guys coming here, not only for educational, but also doing business, I'm always very, very like excited, you know? So I think that I will stop here because then comes some politics, and as the ex-diplomat, I just wanted to evade this angles, sharp angles, and
we don't have to go there. I actually wanted to ask about one thing, or whether you would provide your perspective on it, because many of the startups that are here are focused on blockchain or, you know, metaverse stuff. And of course, like one thing is a favorable taxation. But second, is there anything else that you find, you know, like that would be the source or reason for this? Like why exactly these fields are so popular?
Well, I wouldn't agree like 100% with you because I've seen like 80% of all the startups which I have seen here, and I have seen them a lot. They also ping me and text me on LinkedIn every month. 80% are still like fintech or some other tech dedicated AI, especially right now. It's very trendy. And only like 10 or 20% are somehow or 100% built on blockchain, or they get into this technology or using this, I don't know, some cryptocurrencies or Web3 modules or whatever there is. So, but speaking about the favorable conditions, of course, very nice thing which was brought back in summer of 2019, if I'm not mistaken, with this law which does not oblige you to pay any kind of taxes if your income is in crypto or in digital assets. Yes. And now, when we are starting to implement this SEPA payments in the banking sector, we already have, from the January of 2023, we already have this legislation which also coordinates the digital currencies laws. And now we will have some kind of a taxation, of course, KYC, AML, KYB, all the stuff, which also the law implements. And this is good thing, if you ask me, because this could regulate the market and is starting to regulate the market. And but still,
why is it good?
It's good because, unfortunately, from my experience as consulting, I've consulted like about 10 startups, but I have seen much more. I would say that 90% of all those startups are either scams, either well, they didn't, they cannot prove their business model, and well, they're not successful. Let's put it like this mild way. So this is also a very important issue, a separate kind of thing to talk about. But I think that a soft regulation is always a good thing, because when it's not regulated at all, when there's only this jungle market, as we call it, yes, rules, then unfortunately not 90 but 99% are scams or well, very bad business ideas put on blockchain, or well, not successful, and so on and so forth. So basically soft kind of frames where business can and startups can work and start doing their job is always a good thing, because it also gives you a very good opportunity, which are startup accelerators, which are international investors, especially from tier 1 and tier 2. And this gives you some kind of a confidence, I mean, as an investor.
Yeah, I see. So you think, or just like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, so that it gives also some sort of like seriousness to Georgia, so that we don't want like scammy startups. Because my understanding or my way of thinking to this, like, of course, like, I'm against regulations, honestly. So because I think that the market regulates itself. Are there scammy startups, so then people stop trusting, and then the more likely the companies or the startups are forced to improve their trust, improve their credibility, improve exactly what you're mentioning, just all these plans and everything, just to make it more serious. So I think that just by all these badly managed and governed startups, I think the long-term effect is the same. Just the thing is, like, the more regulations you have, so it actually, like, getting back, I think that's more tricky for people to actually start, just to begin. Because then you cannot just begin by, drafting your idea and starting out things, but you have these regulations, so you have to consult someone, you need a lawyer, or just to make sure that you're actually somehow compliant.
Interesting, very interesting point of view. As a guy who have consulted startups, be it from Eastern Europe, I'm not naming any kind of countries, but I think you can guess, and from Asia, and from Switzerland, from Europe, and even from America, I can only say one thing. It's a very, very big difference in the approach. Of course, you are mentioning the so-called, we call it like jungle rules, yes? When there is no regulation, you can do whatever you want, yes? You can raise money and do kind of an MLM scheme kind of thing, yes? Which is very popular. Let's say hi to BitConnect. Unfortunately, when you have this all these things which are not regulated, although we all know that, especially if you ask the lawyers, we still have some islands which are not regulated, and you only have to know the governor, and then you can have any kind of licenses or any kind of registrations and all these documents, and you can do almost whatever you want. Yeah. But the main thing which I want to stress out is that you have to be, unfortunately, well, it's one little phrase which I always say to a lot of people I meet, about only like 1 or maybe 2, okay, let's put it like 1% of world population is aware of blockchain technology, is like more or less using it maybe. That's a
lot of money still there. Yeah, a lot of money and a lot of people.
Yeah, of course, like, well, obviously, yeah. And already is doing something on cryptocurrencies, all these like aware, yes, of technologies, more or less. But there is still like 99% of other world population, which are maybe not educated, or maybe are not so aware of these technologies, even though they can be like very super smart, but still they have never used it. And they are not even capable of doing some kind of a due diligence or some kind of a checks, or do not have some time or I don't know, some other devices yet to investigate and to do their own research on projects. And this is very, very, as if you ask me my opinion, it's a very, very bad thing because this creates a very good conditions for those companies who wish to do something illegal, which is, for instance, not regulated in the classical market, yes, and they're putting it into blockchain, calling it whatever you want, doing it a lot of marketing and PR, and then they like swish away just in a month or two after getting so. The main focus here of my words is that we have to take care, as Exupéry said, of the little ones, of the ones that we actually brought to ourselves, and actually the people, the users. And this creates a lot of vulnerability for the users of such technology, of such companies, of their services, and so on and so forth. So mild regulations are still very, very useful, if you ask me. And especially, we have a very, very nice examples of some countries which have, for instance, they have like zero regulation on cryptocurrencies. And there is like completely black or gray zone, as we call them.
Yeah.
Yes, be it in crypto, be it with fiat currencies, be it with other things. And this creates a lot of risk. Risk of sponsoring, I don't know, terrorism, of using this black market things, and all these threats that we unfortunately have today.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the biggest terrorist is often the government, so that because
yes and no.
But the point of the problem about regulations from the nation state perspective is that often, they try to save us against exactly like money laundering and stuff. But in reality, the real, money launderers are often the politicians. And I know you didn't want to get there. Okay, well, let's get to our diplomatic, hyper-correct approach. But that's the thing, so that you're actually regulating people. And then I would ask, if people are having the tendency to go into the gray zone, let's say, just hypothetically, so what's the reasoning? Is it high taxation? Is it nonsense to pay the taxation? Is it you pay out someone and you do not get anything in return, So then regular people, if the environment, like from what I understand and what I feel, if the environment is that bad, then you have likely the motivation, again, just, like go gray zone and so on. So, and as I mentioned, I think that if it wouldn't be, let's say, all these crypto blockchain projects, if they wouldn't be that regulated, it actually creates more competition. And in the long run, if you have non-trustworthy projects, it will more likely enforce those legit projects to really work hard on being trusted by people. And I think that in Georgia, the problem may be actually still the lack of competition, because it's a little country, so it makes sense that the projects want to go international. But on the perspective of of just creating this startup, so still there are just a few companies. I think that it's still really on rise. It's like, it's beautiful because, like, as you mentioned, there were just so many events in the past months. It was impressive. I remember I was like at 4 events, but like major important events a week. That was like mind-blowing and impressive. It's amazing that it attracts many investors and companies. But I think that it's still like, it's like a little kid you see growing, and I think it just will have to grow up himself. I don't know.
Well, it's a very good thing that you have mentioned, the competition, especially international competition. Of course, there is a very big lack of, I wouldn't say that of international competition, but very big lack of understanding that you might be top of the notch here in Georgia market. I don't know, let's say you have a delivery app. Yes, I will not call any names because they have not paid it for me for this ad. But anyways, yes, you can be like a first here nationwide. Yes, everybody will be using you, and of course you'll be like very successful, and everything will be like working really nice. Let's say yes, although it's a very big, very big thing to to have a flawless working app. But anyways, but unfortunately, the lack of understanding that there is a bigger market, an international one, or even let's put it like a small European one. Yes, then there are other apps in other countries and other startups, other guys, and there is a very, very big lack of understanding. That's the first thing, and the second thing of willing to scale, to grow, to go overseas, to build something even bigger.
Yeah.
But if the founders, if the board, understands this capability of the startup, and this option is on the table, and they're aware of it, and they're like interested in it, of course, then it's the other side of the story. It's not a very, very I don't know, if you already have a proven business model and the startup is already like not in a zombie stage, God forbid, but like growing and growing, it's always easier to attract money, to attract investors, and so on and so forth. But talking about this kind of still political things, I have to cover it. As an advisor of XDAO, for instance, we already have seen the rise of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which already can be as a way of managing companies, even countries, and making things more transparent, even more simple, and automated. So basically, I think that if we combine the best governmental practices, because as we know, what's the difference from the government and other organizations? Yes, only the government has the power of using the violence. Yes, as they teach in politology in the first course. So basically, if we still have something from the government, yes, and when we add the best of the technology, for instance, DAOs, yes, then in this mixture, we can have this, to my mind, this third way.
All right.
Where things can be done more transparent, more effective, easier and faster.
Yeah.
And it's of course still a political thing maybe, because there's a big political will to be the political decision of such transformation still needed from the government, because we all have to acknowledge and admit that we are having our passports. We are to, gain some visas to go somewhere. Yes, we have to do these things. And we also have, for instance, if you're paying taxes, as in the US, we also have a very big benefits if we face any kind of legal or some other problems abroad, especially if you're a US citizen and you come to a US embassy. Well, you still have some kind of a help and insurance, Well,
so, you pay for it a lot.
Of course. Well, it's I would say that it's fair. It's fair. Because, unfortunately, the economics does not work if you do not pay for something, be it with your time or your health, with your money. And,
efforts.
Nothing works if you do like zero efforts.
But that's the thing. Like, the problem about this, like, higher. Okay, now I'm moving to more political stuff, but like moving to like higher tax countries, it in the long run, the effect is getting more socialistic. You start spending this money on social stuff and on helping out other people and whatever, just thinking as like if you were responsible for others. And then it results in actually people respecting something for nothing. Free education, free healthcare, and so on. It's not free. And just most people do not realize this kind of circle.
Of course, I can agree with this. And if we move into political economics or political theory, or even to history, let's make it very simple for everyone. We have seen for the past, century, for the past 100 years, we have seen a lot of interesting political systems. I would say very interesting experiments. We have seen communism, which is not working at all, yes, and we have seen capitalism, which is still alive and still working. But
I think it's just regulated. It's not really capitalism.
Yeah, of course it's regulated, but it depends. It also, we cannot see kind of a pure capitalism, to be honest, if you ask me, in the world. Even the most capitalistic country, if you say like US, I would say maybe yes, but still there are a lot of socialistic ways put into the system. And a very nice example of this is when a lot of European states and the US itself and some other Western countries, they have paid up to 90% or even 100% of the wages of people during Corona.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Just imagine, you are producing almost nothing, yes, or at least less than previously. You are still paying salaries to people. And now what can you expect? Of course, you can expect only very big inflation and very big problems in economy.
Yeah, sure.
And this is actually just my little prognosis for this and for the years to come, at least in the short term, that very big inflation and very big economic turbulence and crisis will come in our lives because of these very interesting political decisions made. Only because to keep people like calm, not to protest and to, not go into the streets.
Can we just call it populism, please?
Of course, yeah, it's very populistic. And that's actually the vulnerability of the governments, and that's actually the cons of the government, the disadvantages of the political systems that we already have, which I'm not agreeing with as well.
Yeah, but it's just the fact that this is that populist, the reason for it, I think, is that the government just lacks this skin in the game, because they're being paid by someone, they're using someone else's money. I would love to, exactly. You do not really create value, you just create new regulations and tell people, give them allowance, licenses and stuff. But you do not, if government was thinking like a company, if you were forced to create profit, to be profitable, that would be a thing. And not, by taxes, but I mean, like valuable, creating value, that's the thing.
I get it, of course.
Yeah.
Here is a very tricky part. Previously, I was mostly spending my life in political structures and working more into like politics, especially in the diplomatic sphere. And I got, of course, sometimes I got very even shocked and depressed because of how things were made. Yes. For instance, a very big shock for me was when I discovered that, for instance, any kind of MFA, yes, Minister of Foreign Affairs, it can only recommend to implement some kind of politics or put it into international relations and can do some kind of recommendations, analytics, give you some kind of info, but unfortunately, in most of the governmental systems, it comes from the political will from the center, yes, from the government. If, we want to be friends with, let's say, Greece or not, if we want to be, investing and international relations with this country or that country. So it doesn't depend on you as a diplomat, and this was quite a shock for me. Yes, because sometimes nobody even cares on your analytics report, because there is some other interest in the center. When we're talking about the corporations, or as you call them, businesses, big businesses. There's, well, I would say like 99% same things going on there. Because the heads of departments, the board members, the presidents, the chief of, I don't know, the C-level are also humans. And of course, there is also this thing of, I don't know, raising capital, then bringing a lot of profits and scaling and growing, or I don't know, remaining on the same level and so on and so forth. Of course, there's a lot of business interest put in there, but still all these things are managed with people. And my other shock was when actually I discovered that in corporations, in businesses, especially when even from starting from the startups and then when it's converting into a bigger business and put into the corporation, 99% of similarity of what is done in the governments and in businesses, and even sometimes even worse.
Yeah.
Because business can evade, can change, can do some other things. I don't know, can go from one country to the other. Yes, do some relocation, pay a lot of money to the lawyers to evade some taxes or to gain some other profits, and even crash and conquer some smaller startups in the markets which are less regulated, by the way. Yes, which is a very, very usual thing for big companies, by the way. So I would say that once again, the truth is somewhere in the middle, in the combination. And here is the most trickiest and the most difficult, if you ask me, part is to educate and to convince people into finding this third way and into because very, very big, still a lot of big potential and a lot of big strength is in the communities. Yes, in population, in communities. You can call, well, people whatever you want, but let's say communities.
Yeah.
And of course, unfortunately, the educational level or even the will, the laziness of the masses is, especially now with this TikTok, Instagram and all this social media stuff, is so low that it also gives you a very good opportunities to like influence them.
Yeah.
But nobody, well, maybe not nobody, but at least 80% or maybe even more do not want to work with their with their heads and to put some effort into maybe studying something or into like converting and finding this third way. And this is the most difficult part, to convince people and to get them into inventing something new, because we're lazy, you know.
Yeah.
People are lazy, and it's always very, very simple to do the things that are already like in the usual way.
I understand. Thank you so much. This is an interesting like thought and approach. How do you see this when you take it to Georgia? Because, for example, I'm very surprised that first, I think there's still this lacking of Western perspective. At the same time, there's a huge amount of libertarian communities and a new, like I see, to me, a huge power in like young generation, that they are already trying to do things differently than the previous generations, which like the older generations are more conservative and so on. I think that younger people are already having a broader perspective and that they actually do things differently. Like, how do you think that, you know, are you more like optimistic about Georgia when it comes just particular to Georgia? Or, of course, like we have all these reality runaways, as I call it, to social media and stuff, because it's easier. It's easier than to face your reality of life. But course. I see, to me, a drive in younger generations here.
It depends on the personality. In short words, yes.
Okay.
The personality of people. If we're talking about the younger generation, I'm very, very glad that we have such a bright, young boys and girls who are very, very energetic. Because, well, guys here, especially young guys, they have a lot of energy. Even I can say that, still, the sun, which is almost every day, maybe not today, but still it gives you a lot of energy. And I'm not like kidding right now. And this nature and our culture and everything gives you like a lot of potential, Even when we go into like older times, the first woman who actually was the first in chess.
Yes.
She was Georgian.
Yes,
and not only one. We had even two of them. Back into the 70s and 80s. We have very, very smart guys here. Guys, ladies, I mean, young generation, which is coming and educating and traveling because they have even more possibilities to travel, to go to other universities to do this Erasmus programs and exchange programs and so on and so forth. This gives you a very, very big breakthrough in any sphere. Unfortunately, there's other thing. The most smart ones, yes, the most clever, the most ambitious, the most effective guys and girls, they are or have already left the country.
Yeah.
We face this lack of professionals in almost any sphere. Even if you go to a doctor, he can sit in a very, very like shady kind of clinic, not very, very comfortable, but he's a professor, and you go to him because, well, he's a very, very bright specialist and professional in his field, and you know that, well, he's the guy, and there's a very big queues and so on and so forth. Here is the same thing. Unfortunately, most of them they get headhunted by big corporations, especially Amazon and Google. I have some friends who actually were born here, got education here in Europe, and then now they're working for these corporations. I know a lot of IT guys, bright guys, very bright guys, who are working for international big startups, big companies, especially from Europe and America. Almost all of them. Because, well, this creates a very, very interesting situation. Well, of course, with Corona, most of them were based here, and there still are. So it's good for our economy because they are spending here and or maybe even sending money here, as most of the Georgians who live abroad do. But it's like a need. We call it like a needle. It's like a narcotics.
I see.
Because this younger generation also another big problem. They are left without their relatives, especially without their parents, because their mother and father are working abroad to send them money, to get them better education, to do a lot of things. And most of the time they're sitting with their grandmothers or grandfathers, or maybe with aunts or with other relatives, and they do not get this care and attention. Unfortunately, this is also a very big problem. To be honest, it's a very big social problem. And my main point here is that we gotta bring here not only investors but also jobs, and especially not only jobs in tourism or very not so high skilled jobs. Building some factories or whatever. But jobs for highly educated workers, yes, professionals.
Isn't it changing, with all those new startups and companies?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is changing, but we need more.
Yeah.
We need much more because we need those parents to be with their children, to remain here in Georgia and have a decent salary. Have normal and good jobs, at least on European level. And when I say European, I mean Western European and Northern European level, maybe, I hope, in several decades. And to raise our own specialists, because as I started in the beginning, we have very bright minds, very energetic people. Yes, of course, emotional. Yeah, we're emotional, even more emotional than Italians, I think. But very energetic, yes, and very capable, with a very big potential.
Yeah.
And the third thing is that we have to provide them such conditions so that they stay here.
I understand.
Of course, I mean, well, they can travel and do like I do, yes, and do a lot of things. But I prefer, for instance, also with my example, and I always wanted to actually come back and to stay here, work from my homeland, and also be it attracting investments or advising and helping some startups, or just helping even my parents with their businesses. Yes, because if you do not do this, be it you can be, I don't know, Georgian, you can be Ukrainian, you can be I don't know, from Africa, from India, from whatever country you want. As one of the kings of Georgia said, who was already, by the way, who was not 100% Georgian. He was more Persian, but still he built Georgia. It's a very interesting historical fact.
Who was it?
Just Google it.
Okay, okay.
Because he did a lot of things, and
all right.
We always have had mixed blood, you know, because of a lot of wars with the Persian and Empire and Ottoman Empire, Tatar Empire, now Russian Empire. Last 30 years, or maybe even more, depends how you count. My main thing is that you cannot be maybe Georgian by blood, but if you are, for instance, I don't know, born here, or if you're doing business here, and if you're doing a good job, not as kind of a scam or whatever, and your business, as Americans say, my American teacher used to say it, any job is good because it's designed to help people. Unfortunately, when I grew up, I discovered that not any kind of job is like this, but still, it's a very good approach. Helpful. It's very helpful to think and to live in this reality. So any kind of people who come here and do their business and raise this, not only give you more like job possibilities, but also more competition, yes, which is also very healthy, yes, but regulated competition once again. Softly regulated. Because, for instance, if let's say you have Lahidze water, yes. Just a little interesting historical thing. Okay. I cannot evade my fourth education. Sorry. When Stalin met Churchill and Roosevelt in Tehran, he invited them into his office, and they drank Lahidze water.
Oh, really?
So, for instance, you have Lahidze water, but then big corporations come, let's say Coca-Cola, then Pepsi, then even, I don't know, some third kind of thing. And of course, this is a very, very big thing, and it raises a lot of problems for Lahidze waters. Yes, because they do not have such a big capital. They cannot do such a big PR marketing campaigns. Yeah. They do not have such possibilities, such trained, and capable and people and all these resources, right? So when I say softly regulated, this means that, of course, international companies can and please enter the Georgian market. Yes, it's a very big success for everyone, but it has to be more or less regulated. I'm not like thinking of protectionism kind of things, but still at least softly regulated. Otherwise, we lose Lahidze water, which will be, I don't know, lost and by merger and acquisition brought by like big corporation, which will, I don't know, just as they did it with Nokia, by the way, like 10 years ago, if you know what I'm saying. Very interesting example, just a short historical overview as well.
I love your white perspective, you know, like you're from let's have a family together to the political issues and to Nokia. Please.
I'm giving just examples.
Yeah, that's great.
Nokia, after iPhone and Apple being a rising star, in the market. Nokia, as it was like one of the biggest players,
Yeah.
yes, especially in the beginning of the century. I had at least 5 Nokias in my life. They invited a guy from Microsoft. He was their chief executive officer or something like on C-level. And he, in 1 year, he made so many bad decisions, and that was on purpose. As later, yes, that made Nokia bankrupt. And so Nokia went out of this big Wales market. Yes, it's a very interesting example. Just Google it. Yeah. And then, of course, well, it can be like transforming once again into Georgian example. It's not a very good thing to be like zero regulation and all this stuff. Yes, I'm crypto anarchist myself, but last thing, anarchy is a secret order. It's a very interesting saying. Believe me, we still need some kind of maybe softer, but still rules in order to make things productive, effective, and successful. Otherwise, it is unmanageable.
Yeah, but when you have this competition, it forces you to improve your product to be competitive. If no one wants to drink Lagidze water, then there's some other problem possible. Like if you do not have the you don't have the resources to promote your product, then are you selling actually your product? Are you making money? How are your processes and so on? It's been your job, so I'm not. But like from this.
Yeah, I get it. But this still implies a lot of risks. For instance, you need to go onto like more aggressive marketing campaign. Yes, but you do not have such resources as Coca-Cola. Yes,
yeah.
Of course you can be very creative and innovative and all this stuff, but still you need some money and collaborations and doing like all these PR activities. And then you go what? You do sell your shares, which is also takes a lot of time, by the way.
Yeah.
Or you go to a bank for a loan, and which creates you a lot of risks, of course, because if still you cannot compete with the bigger guys, then you still have to return the loan, and then your business can go bankrupt. And it's a very, very big discussion on this, and I totally get it. And of course, you can say that you have to be more flexible and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, it's very, very hard and complicated to compete with bigger guys. One little example, once again, if you want. This one, you'll like it, I hope. Apple.
Yeah, I love how you try.
Apple, it's just because I always like to give examples from the real life stories from business cases, as we call it, because otherwise it's just talks, and theory. There was a very, very interesting moment in Apple's history when Steve was launching. He was launching iMac, or he was launching iPod. Yes, he was launching iPod, if I'm not mistaken. And he was almost gone bankrupt with this new kind of idea of his innovation in the music sphere, music listening sphere. And you can never guess who has supported him, because he was on the edge of going bankrupt. Well, not first time in his life, but still.
I don't know.
Bill Gates. Yes. He, as a monopolist of the IT sphere at that time, yes.
All right.
He actually helped him, both with investments and with advice and a lot of other things. And he actually gave him this hand of help and helped him, yes. And this how we got to this iPod thing, and this how we then had Apple iPhone and many, many other disruptive products which Steve has bought.
Yeah.
So just imagine, then this was like an American business case, right?
Yeah.
Like a free market and a lot of regulations and all this stuff. But for Microsoft Corporation was of course more. It was like easy to kill or to buy or to do this merger and acquisition thing or to like do some other things and not have another competitor of Apple, right? So it was a very interesting business example that even being a very smart, innovative, and genius guy as Steve, you can still lose to bigger corporations because of lack of resources and some other stuff which you do not possess.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much. It's been very insightful and wide discussion. I really appreciate all your examples, and it's just amazing. I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for watching. I would love you if you could please share your insight in the comments. I would love to read them. And if you have any questions, so also feel free to ask. And I'll be happy to see you in the next episode. Cheers.